What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Spencer. Wanted to talk about YCS Hartford, kind of do a meta game analysis, and then kind of just talk about what happened, talk about the game, talk about what happened in the tournament. So this is like the top 32 chart. Before I go like deep into it, I just wanted to say thank goodness like the Yu-Gi-Oh community cares about like the game, because like this is Konami's like, oh, you want to check out the top 32 standings? Like this is their website. This like look how this looks so bad. Like this is like their actual website. This is crazy to me. It's nuts. But anyways, so looking back in the tournament, I watched most of it, or at least their feature matches in the top cut. Pretty good diversity here. Like one of the big storylines going into the tournament, I think, was what was Therion going to do. A lot of new cards got introduced, right? Tons of new support. So I was like, okay, are people going to be able to figure that out fast enough, or like, is it even good enough in the first place? Because we really haven't had a competitive event, right? Like, Yu-Gi-Oh has just not been around, like in paper for that long in the TCG. So this was kind of a weird matchup of like people bringing in like years worth of like playing into this one match, right? Like months and months of play testing from different mediums, and it hadn't come together like a competitive event like this. Second thing that I was thinking about is that Preda Plant branded was like supposed like the surprise deck. Like in the beginning rounds, everyone's like, wow, like I'm starting to see this deck a lot. I think it lost on a feature match, but one feature match is whatever. But then when you look at the top 32 cut here, it didn't make it. Like for as hyped as it was throughout that entire time, like not even a single version of that branded deck did. In fact, I think it's funny because branded Despia, in my opinion, is like definitely the best. But there was two Eldritch builds, which people were saying was like the worst version of branded, at least from what I've been seeing. But okay, we'll go ahead and go over the top 32. 7 Tenyi Sword Soul, which is funny because every time they put it on feature match, it looked horrible. But obviously it performed pretty well, and it is a very good deck. Maybe not like all their hands aren't cracked. Like the deck isn't crazy. I don't know. It is pretty interesting to see like it lose to an Effect Veiler or like an Imperm and just pass churn like when I was watching it. But it feels like when I'm playing it, they have crazy hands. Token Collector obviously was like really good against them, and I think it even made it to top 4. So like even as good as that card is, and I feel like everybody was playing it, like the deck still made it, like had some of the highest representation, which is pretty wild. 7 Punk, 3 interesting. So maybe like 1 pure Punk, because it says 3 Adventure, 2 Therion, so maybe just 2 other Punk. But this deck was like really good. Like I talked about maybe it being underrated, but I think now like with the Therion stuff, it's like finally coming all together. The only thing is like when I watch it, it looked like they're just horrible card advantage. Like you're just wasting so many resources. But I think this is a deck, at least when I watched, that made Calamities. There's a Synchro Calamities that locks your opponent out of monster effects on the field. Like they literally can't even attempt to activate, so no cost or anything like that, which is huge, right? Against something like Despia, because if they can just get Mirror Jade's effect off, well, they can do a whole lot of stuff. So that obviously was like a really good. That's probably a big reason why it made top cut, in my opinion. Although Calamities, of course, is just a good card anyways. I don't think it actually made it towards the higher up top spots, which was pretty crazy. We'll look at it. I didn't look at the top 16 yet, but through Fluenderies, everyone talked about how bad this deck is, but if enough people play it, like someone's going to just open good hands for the tournament. Like I feel like it's what it comes down to. Either breaks or you do really well. So if there are a lot of Flu players, like statistically speaking, like more of them are going to open well, and if they do, you just win the duel, right? If you get like M-Pen plus a barrier statue, your opponent just loses. That's just kind of how it works. Or D-barrier, right? Or Dimensional Shifter, like they just activate Shifter, normal summon Arbini, like, and you just scoop. Like that's just kind of how it works. So 3 Sky Striker. This was like kind of like one of the big surprises. Adventure was like a thing in the OCG, like when the Adventure engine like first came around, people were talking about how OCG players were doing that. I don't think that's the one that ended up like going through, and really I don't even understand how it works myself, because the token, wouldn't it like mess with your zones, or maybe it's used for link climbing. I don't know about that one, but okay, I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I mean I can talk about it now. Like yeah, like Dimensional Barrier and Mystic Mine were the 2 best cards of the tournament, I think, objectively. Like Mystic Mine won a game like via deck out. in like a mirror match or something like that. Like there's just so many feature matches where like people were just like, all right, it's like either scooping because of Mystic Mine, or they ended up just decking out straight up. So that's what Sky Striker can do, and they can play both of them. And also the other thing is that card stinks against them, and I think that's what most people are playing. Like those were the two powerhouse cards of the tournament, and they don't affect Sky Striker like at all for the most part. So I think that's why they saw so much success, especially in the top cut. Drytron, I think, is just a Scythe lock type of thing. Like obviously, they're just easy to special summon, so that's kind of, it's just become like a weird combo deck, like link climbing deck almost feels like, in a sense. Although obviously he's ritual summoning, but bringing out a lot of bodies is like kind of like the best thing that they do. Adagnister is funny, like that's definitely cool. You got to be dedicated to make that deck in the top cut. Dragon Link, really, it's a good deck. Didn't like, it just depends. Like it's hard to tell like what were people bringing. I think there were like 1,000 attendees or something like that. But a lot of these just kind of slipped through. I think, probably a good amount of representation for Dragon Link. It just had like some of its hands are cracked. So like I saw them play against Libromancers on one of the feature matches, and they just had like Gamma, like Chaos Space. Like it was just nuts. They had everything they could have possibly ever wanted. But I don't think it lasts forever. I think you have to like really draw cracked, or else your hands just kind of look like duds off the normal summon. ABC Adventure, I played this on the channel. It's a good deck. No surprise. It actually doesn't surprise me. And I think you'll see maybe more people trying out the deck. Like, it's kind of like new or different, and most people probably don't even know about this deck. But if it had gone far, I think definitely that like in the next competitive event, more people would be picking it up. And then DDD, always good. If you win the dice roll, like a lot of the times you're gonna win. That's just like the deck is really consistent. It puts up really crazy boards. But the good pilots, obviously, like you need really good pilots because the deck is so complicated. But luckily for the DDD community, that's some of the most like dedicated people I can possibly think of. Onto the top 16. So 5 Punk just went right in. So like that is crazy. Clearly they didn't play each other like in the top 32 like to knock each other out, but like they almost all of them won like their matchups. So Punk, I think, is just going to continue to grow on this pie chart. Like I think people are going to start dropping other decks. 3 flew under E, so I think they went undefeated as well. It absolutely did. 2 branded Despia. Again, like I said, I think that's the best version. Sky Striker Pure, pretty standard stuff because they could play the 2 powerhouse cards. 2 Tenyi Sword Soul and 2 Drytron. So really, I'm trying to think of like what dropped here. Adagnister, ABC Adventure, DDD. I mean, that's, yeah. Those decks, I think once it comes up to it, yeah, like when they go face off with like the best decks of the format, probably not going to be their time. But going on to the top 8, obviously some of the Punk players had to eventually start playing each other. But a lot of like these one-ups started like sneaking through. So at this point, it really was anybody's tournament. And then this is like think about how differently you approach these matchups. Like if you're the branded Despia player, like playing Fluenderese and playing Drytron, 2 completely different like waves of thinking. And it really doesn't surprise me. I thought Fluenderese actually had a chance at this point, but into the top 4 was just Sky Striker, like pretty much the best decks of it, like, branded Despia, Drytron, Tenyi, Source Soul, and then Sky Striker there. And then the finals, of course, was Sky Striker versus branded Despia. A lot of people thought it was going to be Tenyi, but branded Despia, like branded, I think it looks really good against Tenyi. They don't really have great interaction points too much, or at least it seemed like that throughout the tournament, and surely in the top cut. But I kind of touched on this, and this will kind of be my final thoughts. The Sky Striker, final match against branded was so lame. Like game 1, it was Mystic Mine, didn't have an out, game over, which that sucks. I just hate watching games like go to the end because of Mystic Mine. That's passing. Like I don't know. Not great gameplay, at least in my opinion. And then the last game, he had double D barrier, and obviously that was just plenty. I don't think he opened up a Brandon Red, which was really like their only out, quote unquote, to like a D barrier. And he ended up just scooping. Because if you start skipping turns, which is what D barrier does, Sky Striker is just too good. Like it only needs like a turn before it starts snowballing, and you'll just never get caught up because they'll just have too many cards. And then I think when Mystic Mine was up, he's acting engaged, and he had 3 spells in graveyard. It was nuts. Like the deck obviously has just always been around. It's always good, and I think it's cool to see in the competitive scene. Although I don't know if it would be at all like if Mystic Mine wasn't around. So I feel like the card like definitely is in line to get banned. For the next ban list, hopefully. But let me know what you guys think about the YCS in the comment section down below. Other than that, that's going to do it for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.